And we are live. So
Okay.
we are in our second episode now, and I'm here with my co-host or host. We're share the hosting. Is Charles Briggs, and then this episode we're just gonna get to know each other a little bit better. So for anyone that is started to view our video podcast, you'll know a little bit more about us.
I
So
love
Charles,
it.
how do we want to get started here?
Yeah, I think the you had prepared maybe some questions that we could get started with, and go from there. But I maybe starting with some quick intros before we get into the deeper questions. Just again, for anyone who missed our first episode, you can go ahead and watch that. Or real quickly, just an introduction. My name is Charlie Briggs. I'm a product designer. I do physical product design, and I'm in the middle of the US is where I'm located. And I'm here with my co-host, Andres, which has a fun pronunciation that he can maybe tell in his intro.
Yes, thanks for that, Charles. And for anyone that is tuning into this episode, we're trying some new software, and hopefully it will be a better experience. So that way we can share the screen and also share the screen itself with our own video avatars. So my name's Andres. It's you pronounce it like undress your clothes or stuff like that. Chris Doe has my mentor, my boss. He informed me that's what it sounds like. So now I've been just using that as, and a lot of people have been saying that's really easy for me to remember how to pronounce your name. And so, yep, that's me. I am from London, Ontario, in Canada. So Charles and I have developed this amazing relationship where we've never met each other in person, but we've met each other digitally. And I think it's been formulating into this awesome friendship where we've tried to do many things together and also tried to are trying to pilot this podcast. So we're really excited for the people to see us more here on this journey of sharing our thoughts, our knowledge, and engaging with our ever growing community. So that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. So yeah, let's get into the questions. And as we're doing that, if you have any questions or comments that you want us to answer, feel free to list them in the comment section below. If you're on YouTube, or I believe we have an email linked down in the show description as well that you can send them to. But let's get started. Andres, what is the first question that we have for each other?
All right. My first question is, what is your favorite childhood memory? You can go
That
first, Charles.
that is a great question, and you might be able to hear my dog is going on barking in the background, so apologies for that. But we are recording live, so let's keep going. My favorite childhood memory. I think I'm gonna cop out a little bit and say there were kind of a couple of memories or kind of continual experiences in my childhood that I really enjoyed. I grew up in a smaller town of about 7,000 individuals. And so my friends and I would just ride around on our bikes all the time and explore. We had kind of a creek or a river that was flowing through the town, and a couple of areas where, wooded sections where we would just be able to go out and explore and kind of let our creativity flow in a lot of different ways, whether that was building forts or, playing Frisbee or soccer or really just enjoying our own backyards quite a bit and having that friendship. I think that kind of collective creativity that we were able to bring and imagination that we were able to bring was just so fun for a kid in a small town when there's not much else to do. So that forced us to be very imaginative with our time. And so, Andres, I would like to push this question back to you and ask you, what is your favorite childhood memory or memories?
Oh, thank you for that answer, Charles. I really enjoyed it. And so many things come up. For anyone that is listening, and if you grew up in the '90s, so I'm a '90s kid, and I
Same.
will always think of Pokemon as one of my favorite childhood memories. It just brings a lot of really wholesome memories where we're on the playground and we're watching each other play Pokemon over each other's shoulders. So stuff like that. And also drawing in my spare time was another one that I always think back to, and I still do it to this day, where I will stay up a little bit later than I should and just draw like my favorite characters of whatever show. It could be Pokemon, it could be The Walking Dead, it could be a bunch of other weird little things, and that's something I still do to this day. So
Well, I notice your little Charizard kind of peeking out beside your mic there, for anyone who can see that in the screen. And I have two follow-up questions for you with that. Is
mhm.
one, what was your most played Pokemon game? Like which version? And then, yeah, let's start with that one. What was your most played?
I think if I can remember this correctly, again, it's so foggy thinking back to my childhood, but I think my most played was probably Yellow, Pokemon Yellow.
Okay.
So, and I
Poke-
think the reason why I loved it so much is that Pikachu would follow you around, and you could get all the starters, and it was just an awesome experience. Loved that game for sure.
That is great. I wore out Pokemon Emerald. That was my initiation into the Pokemon world for sure.
That's a great one for sure.
Love it.
All right, you
Um,
ready for? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, let's go into questions too. As you can tell, audience, we're still figuring out a little bit this give and take,
Oops.
so please bear with us. But yeah, let's go on to question two.
Question two. All right, let's go to question two. Question two is, when did you know that you wanted to pursue design as a career?
Yeah, I can start off with this one again if you want. My initial thought was, and I should have said this for question one, like you did, but I was also always drawing in a notepad. I think I found a couple notepads the other day where, 6-year-old, 7-year-old Charlie was drawing ideas. And I knew from a pretty young age that I wanted to be an inventor. And seeing where design fit in for inventing new products and being able to release products to the world kind of came on later in life. So I was always quote unquote designing as a young individual, but I went to school for mechanical engineering actually, and in that I realized I looked up in one of my senior level classes and I saw that I was the only person who was drawing. Everyone else was doing math equations or homework or probably what they're supposed to be doing. And I was sitting over here drawing ideas for different products or new ideas that I had. And I think that's when it really sparked for the second time that childhood spark came back of really interested in design and kind of led me down that road of learning more, seeking, figuring out how to draw effectively to communicate my ideas and what makes a design good or bad and how to kind of communicate that effectively as well. And I would say that's when it really first started and led me to pursue my career in design, product design. What about yourself? When did you know that you wanted to pursue a design or pursue design as a career?
Yeah, I love this question. But before I get to myself, I
Oh
have
yeah.
some follow ups for you.
Okay.
So you said that you were this kind of inventor. So
Yes.
I'm curious to know, do you ever look back on or reflect on some of the inventions that you created as a kid or as
Mm,
a adolescent or whenever? And do you still think about those inventions to this day?
I definitely do. So there were, I mean, I think a lot of it was the typical type inventions, right? Like suction cup shoes and how can you make like a hoverboard? I thought that was the coolest thing. Marty McFly, if anyone's seen Back to the Future, with his hoverboard. And so I would sit there thinking about, okay, how can we manipulate magnetic fields with the earth or gravity? I didn't know what I was talking about because I was a kid, but it was still fun to, I ideate through some of that processes and look at what can we do there. And now they've actually created a couple iterations of real life hoverboards that have different applications. So it's cool to kind of see back. You know, I think it was one of those things where inspiration had not met application yet in terms of we still wanted hoverboards, but we didn't know that it was possible. And now that we're grown up, we actually have seen them starting to come around, and that's really cool. Even though I haven't pursued creating those inventions myself. It's so fun to see that, as a collective, like humanity is designing together to create these products forward. So thank you. That was a great question.
Yeah, I love that. And this is why we get so along very well, everyone. And so again, if you haven't connected with Charlie or Charles just yet, make sure you find him on Instagram, and you can also see some of his wonderful work there as well. All right, so I have to answer this question now, right?
Yes. Yes,
So
please
let's
do.
see. Let's see here. So when did I know I want to pursue a design career? So this one took a little while for me to figure out because I didn't know that graphic design was like an actual career kind of thing. I didn't think that people could be paid for their creativity, or that graphics, that there was somebody that was designing the graphics behind like cereal boxes or stuff like that. So it took me a little while to figure out that somebody actually did that, and there was a process that was to that, and people can get paid to do that. So I would say I was working a blue collar job, and I'll just glaze over it super quick so we can get to the other questions. Is that I was working a blue collar job, and there's one day where I was looking up at some ads that this company was sending out to people, and it was there when I was like, I think I could do better than what this flyer is has laid out their information and stuff like that. So that's when it piqued my curiosity. I'm like, okay, where if there is a person that's doing this, who are they? And then I started to look at other. I started to look at the community college catalog of courses, and then I finally figured out there's a graphic design or other stuff like social media, interactive design or interactive design, something like that. And then I just applied. I'm like, I'm gonna try to pursue this. I want to exit out of the blue collar work because uh, I'd rather not be there anymore. And there's so many things. There's so many reasons why. And then I just finally took the plunge, and then here I am today.
That is great, and I think you just came up with our next best tongue twister with a community college catalog of courses. That's that's great. Wow. Follow up question is, I guess when you saw those ads and you were pursuing that, um, at that point in time, was there anyone in your life that kind of helped you understand that design was an option, coming from that blue collar job?
Wow. So this gets deep because I try not to talk about my past too often, but we're digging, right. We're becoming vulnerable in
We're
these
digging.
episodes, right? So I can't find like a person that told me like, oh, like this is I'm a graphic designer. This is what I've done. I had never found someone like that. On the opposite side of that, my boss at the time, he came up to me one day and he's like, "You're too smart for this job, and I really would love to see you one day go back to school." So that was another sign. And this boss, bless his soul. At the same time, he was a huge, I don't know if I can swear here, but a huge let's see, a drill sergeant. So if you know what I mean by drill sergeant, you know that he was the type of person that would raise his voice. He would um, just be very stern on the tasks that he needed to get done for the company. So yeah, that was a dynamic there. So he didn't teach me or tell me about graphic design, but he definitely put me on the pursuit of it even faster. If that's what I've been trying to say.
Definitely. Yeah, helped you pursue those those ideas or those passions as they arose. So it wasn't just you by yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Um, I don't think I have any other follow up questions. Do we want to scoot on to the next one?
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
I do also want to just make sure that when you talk, you get to put yourself as the big video as well.
Oh yeah, I forget to do that. I
I
get
know
so
you
caught
do. So
I get caught up in my what I'm trying to say, and I forget to click. It's one of those things
yeah,
where everyone, I don't know if you can relate to this, is that there's no such thing as multitasking. There's only task switching. So I can speak, but I can't do the the switching of the screens.
well, if I interrupt you, it's all it'll just be for me to say click, and then you can make sure that you are the big video.
All right, all right. I appreciate that. All right, so the next question I really like. So this is to
Ooh.
Charles directly right now. So where do you find inspiration?
Is this going to be our first hour and a half podcast? Is that what this is?
I would love
Where
that.
where do you find inspiration? Um, I had a design class in college that it was engineering design, but they still had a really good tidbit in there around finding inspiration and where to look. And one of the things that I saw, and I typically try and practice when I'm doing product design, is looking in other industries that could have no relation to what your industry is or what you're doing, and see what kind of practices they've put in, or see if you can get any inspiration from those designs as well. And that can do a couple things. One is it can keep you away from just looking like all the other um, I mean, I'm just looking at my headphones and, earbuds right now. Take earbuds. You can look at all the earbuds online, and they're all fairly similar. And you see this with phones. It just happens a lot, where you get similar designs. And so if you're trying to really push the envelope, or to maybe come up with, is there a new way to solve the same problem? I would say looking in another industry to really get some design ideas to then relate back to your current industry. So that was something that some advice that I was given in a senior level design course, and I still try and do that today. I think they had mentioned like looking in the cake industry and and cake decorating, to look at those tools and see kind of how they've solved unique design questions and problems, and seeing if we can apply those to our current current industry that we're looking for. So I think that's a big one. I'm also a very big advocate of like inspiration can just strike. And so usually I think I've heard it as like um, designers are similar to artists, and I don't want to sound too pretentious saying that, where we gather and we see a whole bunch of different mediums and a whole bunch of different ideas, and the thing that makes our designs unique is our filter that we put on those designs that are already out in the world. So if Andres and I were to see the same 5 inspirational photos or mood board, we would both come up with different designs because we put our own personal filters on it, or lived experience, whatever you want to call it, on those ideas, and we formulate a different design out of it. So I think just being able to keep your eyes open, look at all the little details around you in different designs, and those will kind of sit in the back of your brain. And then at some point, inspiration will strike. And that's, I think, will relate to another question in the future that we talk about, which is our design process. So I will leave that for there. Do you have any follow-up questions? Did any of that resonate with you, Andres?
Absolutely. There's so much there that I think that going back into the replay, this might be a part where for you, Charles, we might need to
Yeah.
cut and make reels from it because you said a lot of
Mm,
great things and I really relate to a lot of it. The first
mm,
one that really resonated with me is taking a look at other industries. So expanding your palette of creative tools or palettes of creative thinking from outside of your normal industry that you're looking at. I think that's
mm.
absolutely wonderful because there's so many different things that you can take apart and then take a piece of it and then use it in your own process or as inspiration. And I really love that. It's that there's nothing essentially new in the world anymore, but you can
Mm,
remix it so that it does stand out a little bit more. So, and I
yeah.
really like that part because then like you were saying that you as an individual are the filter, and then you
Mm,
can, with all what you've have consumed and have in your head is now can be a way where it can formulate something greater than what could be the next best mousetrap or something like that. Whatever it can be,
definitely.
product design or something like that. And I think that's a great thing.
Mm.
Everything that you said. I don't think I can add more to that, to be honest, because you essentially were is gonna say the same thing I was gonna say.
Oh.
But there's one thing I can add is that there is this connotation or phrase is that you have to think outside the box. And
Mm.
this is the only thing I have to add, everyone, is that when you think that you have to think outside the box, you've created a, a, a container of information that you now have to break out of. But if you think that there
Mm.
is no box, then it's limitless of what you'll come up with. Because when you start putting things in a box, it's like, okay, this has to be like this, it has to be like this. And then you already are, adding restraint to your imagination. And so that way it can't break out and you can't think beyond that kind of stuff. So what I like to say is never put anything in a box. No, don't, or even use that phrase because I think it's very limiting. But that's my own personal take on that kind of stuff. But we can move on to the
Wow.
next
No,
question.
no, no. I want to pause there on a second because I think that was very profound. And I want to, again, just make sure that you expand your video when you are about to say super profound things like that.
I forgot again.
When, no worries. When I would love to ask, do you have a replacement phrase instead of saying, let's think outside of the box? Because I loved what you were saying, where you're kind of um, creating a barrier for yourself by saying, let's think outside the box versus just starting with, I don't like what would you start with? Like, let's just think, or is there another phrase that you like to use when you're starting design iterations?
Oh my goodness. I haven't actually put it into a phrase, but the things that go into my head is that there's limitless possibilities. And that's usually what I tell myself. It's one of those things that I guess it's kind of like words of affirmations. If anyone out there is familiar with love languages,
Mm.
I guess I tell myself a lot of these affirmations. So that one's comes up quite a bit. So if I'm working on a project and I feel stuck and I'm like, oh, I can't think of anything new, blah blah blah, I would tell myself there is limitless possibilities to this project. I just have to either a look for other industries to get inspiration from, or I need to take a break, or I need to sleep on it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because with again, now we're kind of segueing into the process of it because with inspiration, like you said, it's sometimes it does strike you. And sometimes, you know what, the most annoying part is when inspiration strikes you, is when you don't have a pen or a piece of paper to write it down.
I
Or
agree.
or it comes to you right before you sleep. And you're like, oh, do I
Uh,
have to get out of bed now and start writing this stuff down? So those are my final thoughts on that.
yes, yeah, we can definitely keep talking about that. But I believe our next question talks about processes. Is that correct? So maybe we can just segue into that, and I can ask you first the question. So yeah, what is your creative process, and how does your inspiration feed into it? And I'm going to remind you to make yourself big.
All right, I'll do it this time. Let's see if I do a little switcheroo here. Okay, so the process. So this is gonna be such a weird answer, but it might be relatable. So this is when I would love to engage with the community here, if in case that this does resonate with you, or I'm one of a kind, which I don't think I am, is that I will follow a process for sure during work. Like if anyone from my team asks me to do something, I will follow like a step-by-step process. Like what is the deliverables, what do we need, what are the dimensions, like all these kind of questions for example, like a graphic design project. But at the same time, or I wouldn't say at the same time, alternatively is that I don't even follow a process sometimes. Like I'll skip the sketching phases, I'll skip all the different phases, and I'll just kind of do it intuitively, as weird as this sounds, because I kind of can get something because I've done so many projects that the process is already gone through my head. I'm like, oh, okay, this is not going to work, that's not going to work, this typeface is probably not going to be the best, I can use this, and I can just go right at it. Some of my challenges in the past, like social media challenges, like posting on and Instagram, I've done that. I've just like I know what I want to create. I just have to get the assets and put the scene together, and I'm done. Other times where it's a bigger project, like for an example, like an explainer video that I've done long time ago now, I did have to understand the pain points of the customers. So I had to do some research on that. Then I also had to talk to the stakeholders and then get a script together, and I would have to get that by somebody that is a way better writer than me, and then follow the regular process where you get feedback, and then do another round of iterations, get it finalized, signed off, and then publish it. So that's my quick answer for you. It's all over the place, just like my mind.
No worries. Yeah, I really resonated with what you said there, and I think something to note is, and I can't take credit for this. My wife actually told me this a while back. Is basically when you're designing for yourself or creating for yourself, you've kind of already gone through a lot of those processes because the end product is you and it's fully you, and so that way, when you say as you create for yourself, you jump to the end sometimes, and you quote unquote skip the process. I would say the process is kind of already happened because it's your brand that you're coming up with, or your ideas, and you don't have to validate that off of somebody else's framework. Whereas when you're working for a company or another individual or anything of that sort, you have to make sure that you're following some of these design processes, so that way the thing that you design follows that company's mission, brand, identity, whatever you want to call it. And this is for if you're designing for a company, right? But if you think about it, you have years, pretty much as many years as you've been alive, you have in terms of practice for designing for you versus designing for a company. You have however many years you've been at that company. So it makes sense that you have to have maybe a little bit more of a structured process in a company versus designing for yourself. Did that make sense, Andres, or was I just rambling there?
Yeah, it makes sense for sure. I think, like you said, when you're designing for yourself, there's a lot of moving parts to it, and you've highlighted some really good points on that.
Hmm.
So I really like that. So, did you want to continue answering the question, or do you want to get to our final question?
Ooh, I'll try and do a quick answer and then we can move on because I want to make sure that we stay in our 30-minute time limit. My creative process, yeah, very similar to you, is when I work with other individuals, it's a lot of making sure that we're on their brand, vision, mission. And so, you're looking at things like identity boards. I've learned and I practice what's called like a double diamond approach, which if you think about just kind of two diamonds in the air, you start at a point, you have to diverge and think of a lot of ideas and then converge back. So you make a diamond, and that will get you to a new idea. And then you do that again to even narrow down that idea further into a final product. And you can do that as many times as you want, but typically I think the industry term is a double diamond approach to some of that design process. And then when it's for myself, I just like to get in it. I like to get messy. I think creating by breaking is an actually very important personal practice, which is just I like to start making prototypes. I like to see what works, see what doesn't, and update from there rather than take a lot of time, think through all the processes, and then cut. I think an older mentor of mine used to say the old adage is measure twice, cut once. He would say measure once, cut twice, and then I think it's just measure and cut as you go, and update as you go. Right? I think design can be a living thing, so it doesn't have to be permanent.
I totally agree with the last part of it. Is that I think that personally, design, whatever you create, can always be improved upon. And it takes a very special person or a special designer or enough knowledge and experience to know when to stop, because you can over design something, you can add too much, and add all the bells and whistles. So it's amazing. Yeah. So I really liked your answer
Oh,
on
thank
that.
you.
And it got me thinking that maybe one day, or maybe it's going to be our next video podcast, is that we could just talk on process, because it sounds like you have a lot to say on that at Double Diamond. I'd love to
Yeah.
see that in action or an
Mm,
example from you, or maybe we could workshop that into this, and like you can just
definitely.
teach us how to do that.
Yeah, if you're watching this and you have an opinion, please put it down in the comments below. If you want us to continue this question, or if you even have another question that you want us to answer in a future video, I'm sure we'd love to collect those and to have a future video. But Andres, do we want to hit up that last question? Do kind of a quick
Yeah,
answer?
let's do it. Yep. So we'll wrap up in the next 5 minutes. And my question to you, Charles, is what's your dream job?
Okay, in the next 50 minutes, you mean, is when we'll wrap up. No, I would say, I enjoy working, and I actually think that I will always have a job. Some people think that they're gonna retire, but I feel like I always need to keep myself busy. That being said, I don't know if I dream of work. There's a lot of different controversies around this. There's the hustle mentality. There's the if you work a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I think that any job has an aspect of work to it, and so my dream job is if I can help other people by making products that they would use on the daily basis. That is like the core statement for what I want to do is help others. And I think that the best way that I can do that is utilizing my design and engineering expertise for that. And so really anything that falls within there. That being said, I like sitting on the beach. I like going to the mountains and not working. So maybe I don't actually dream to have a job, but I dream to live life.
That's
So
such
on,
a wonderful answer, and I think that you will achieve that. There's no doubt in my mind
oh,
that you're a person like that, likes to genuinely help people. I've seen it in action.
mm,
And would you ever become a park ranger? Is that a real title?
ooh,
I'm not too
yeah,
sure.
park
Park
ranger.
ranger?
That's interesting. Maybe I would. Uh, I feel like I'll look into it. But I want to ask that question to you. What is your dream job
My
besides
dream
this
job.
podcast with me? Obviously.
This is a bit of a dream that's happening now. I've always been scared of putting myself online, especially on
Mm,
video, because I'm not very
same.
articulated. Like I will stutter my words every once in a while, so that scares me to put myself online. But to answer the question, my dream job would probably be something to do still with design. I think that as soon as I figured out that I really enjoy it, that I can't now not depart from it. It's always going to be a part of me. Maybe it already has been a part of me since forever. So I'm not sure what that would look like. But the other side of me would really love to do something with agriculture. So I would love to have a apple orchard in the long future. I think it would be amazing if I also had a little area shack kind of. I don't know how to explain it, like a little house where some of my friends could come and visit. So for you, example, Charles, I know you're all the way on the other side of America, or and North America, I should say, that one day you can come up to Canada and have be in my apple orchard, and you can have your own spot if you want to bring your wife or kids or
Yes.
dogs. That you'll have a little shack, a little house that you or a tiny home, I should say. And that's what I
Yeah.
meant to say, tiny home,
Tiny home.
that you could just come up and you can live there with me on the same land. And if you want to go pick some apples or make some apple ciders, I don't know if you drink or not, or maybe non-alcoholic apple cider. And if you come in the wintertime, we could do something really cool as well. And do some snowmobiling. So my dream job would be is to really, if I were to narrow it down, is to help my closest friends experience maybe some fun times. I think that's the general vibe. If I could do something more worldly, it'd probably be make sure that people in Canada do get fresh water. There's lots of communities out there that don't have fresh water, so that would be like a mission of mine. I still haven't quite figured it out, so I'm a little bit afraid to say it because I haven't put a lot of time and effort in order to figure out what that actually looks like. So, but one day I will. I'm still on the pursuit of that as well. So that would be my answer.
Oh wow. There's so many follow-up questions and conversations I think we could have about your orchard, and that is very exciting. I do enjoy a good hard cider. That's one of my favorite beverages, and so I would love to come up and we could maybe make a hard cider brand together. Maybe that's the future of our collaboration there. But that sounds amazing and like a great dream, and I would love to continue the conversation as well around the idea of getting clean water to everyone in Canada. That's something that I personally have never heard before. So I want to make sure that we give that the due process and conversation that it deserves.
Yeah.
So yeah, this has been I think a great episode. I've learned more about you. Hopefully the listeners have learned more about both of us. And as we continue kind of meeting once a week, again, I want to shout out that if anyone has comments or suggestions for episodes, please put them in the comments below, and we'll be in there and we'll be looking and taking your suggestions, and hopefully that can help keep this going. And Andres, I want to also just bring you back on screen and see if you have anything else to close us out. I'll hand it over.
I would say if anyone that's watching this, you enjoyed our conversation, you enjoy our vibe, please consider subscribing to us, leaving a comment on any suggestions that you would love for us to talk about. Any struggles you have with design or the process. Maybe you're a student and trying to break into the industry. That's another thing I think we both could help with, because I know that it is very difficult to break in, and these times now are even more difficult because now everything's virtual or half and half, so stuff like that. So like Charles is on a good mission, and with this podcast we would love us to help as many people as we can as well, delivering value and just having a fun time, and maybe even have you up as a guest speaker potentially one day. I'm throwing that idea out there in case we might have some people that would love to join us on stage.
I love that idea. I think maybe a future live session where we can have audience members give us questions.
Oh yeah, exactly. All right, so we'll end it here, Charles, and can't wait for the next episode. So I'll see you next week, Charles, and for the viewers, I'll also see you next week. All right, take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.